Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. And it's just Marco here today to talk about something very interesting. Um, I basically did a little experiment, a very strange, stressful, hard experiment. It was tough. Uh, Basically, I watch this other show called Welcome to the Basement. Sometimes they're a movie review show, and they watch this one movie where they came up with the idea from the movie, uh, like called a cinema immersion tank. And it's basically where for an entire week you just watch one movie, and you watch that movie every day for an entire week. And I did that, but I also watched some other movies, but yeah, that's not a part of this video. I watched the movie Bully from 2001 for 7 days in a row. Technically, I did not watch it today, but the second day, I actually liked the movie so much that I watched it twice in one day, which, I know, it's not as bad as it sounds, like, in terms of, like, I'm not a crazy person or anything. It's just, I love true story movies. I love biographical movies. And so this movie was right up my alley. I didn't really like the cover very much. Uh, the cover sort of makes it look like I don't know, it makes it look like a dark, ugly movie. And it is pretty dark and ugly at some points, but I mean, it's a movie. I mean, it's not I don't know, it's just some movies, they make themselves look worse than they are, by way of marketing, posters, all that kind of stuff. And the title, Bully, it really doesn't tell you very much. It kind of makes it sound like it's going to be a very rough experience, which it was. The first time I watched it, I was, I didn't really, I didn't like it. I was very, taken back by all the nudity and the language. It reminds me of when I watched Californication for the first time, the way that, that show, took me back with all that stuff in there. Oh, this one has even more than Californication. And I was like, oh my god. Like, ugh. Like, this is so trashy. It just made me feel like, ugh. Look at these gross people in this gross world that they live in. Ugh. I mean, I mean, it's even grosser than Trailer Park Boys, which I didn't even know was possible. I mean, you got this guy named Marty, and he drools all over himself all over the time, all the time. You got this girl named Lisa, and she always looks like a witch, and she was actually in Californication as well. She did a great job in Californication and in this. She was phenomenal. And I gotta say, this movie was just incredible. Because then, as the movie went on for the first time, I started to really like it. And I thought, this reminds me of like like Fargo, basically, if Fargo was good. As you know, I'm not a fan of the original Fargo movie. And to me, this movie actually takes the concept of like a crime done really poorly and does it a lot better, throughout the middle portion. And then, of course, it gets to the end where you're just, I mean, it exhausted me. And the first time I watched it, the movie, it did make me cry a little bit. It was very disturbing and upsetting. The fact that these teenagers, they're so evil. These people in real life, they're fucking evil. And this movie really shows, like, just how sinister, like, murderers really are. I mean, this just revolves around one person getting murdered. And yet, it makes you feel like these people are, like, evil enough to have done it to like 1 million people. Like they're plotting it together. They're acting like it's a game, like it's some sort of like a teenage fantasy, and they're so ugh. They made me want to puke how evil they were. The only people that I thought maybe, these people aren't as bad as the others would be. Uh, it's tough because honestly, I don't want to say anything nice about them because I know that in real life, in reality, they all stood there and witnessed and took part in the killing of an innocent person. And, you can say all you want about how he was a rapist, how he was a bully. I don't care, okay? That doesn't give you the right to kill somebody and take a life like they did. And the way that they killed him, I mean, he was tortured, basically. I mean, he suffered, and he wasn't even dead after they killed him, I guess. I mean, they put him in the water. Crabs were eating him, so he was still alive while all that was going on. That's torture. I mean, just the cruelty, the cruel nature is just so over the top that it makes you really realize just like how, I don't know, it really changes your perspective on killing, killing in movies. It really helps because of all the desensitization, I guess you'd say, of watching all these movies, all these horror movies, all these dark movies where you just see like 1 million people getting killed right and left. You really don't feel anything after a while. And with this movie, it really changes that, and it makes you feel a lot for what happens. And so I have to applaud that because I really think that more movies should be like that, where you do feel the pain of what happens. And to top that off, the movie, I gotta make a comparison here, because there's a movie that I watched last year, and spoiler alert, it's gonna be on the top 10 worst of the year from last year, and it's a movie called Bernie, and it stars Jack Black, and it's basically this serial killer, or I mean, I guess this killer propaganda movie, where it's basically saying, oh, this guy named Bernie, he was so nice, and he was such a nice guy, and oh, he killed somebody, but oh, he didn't mean to, and he doesn't deserve to be in jail. He's a nice guy. And that movie just made me sick when I watched that. Even worse than this movie, because it was basically one long propaganda movie. And guess what happened after that movie? The guy who killed an innocent old woman, and with that one, they literally said that her crime was the fact that she was mean. Like, she's a mean woman, so that means she deserves to die. Like, F off with that shit. And guess what happened, though? He got released. He got sent home. He got an appeal happened, and he got to go. And even worse, he went to California to stay in the director's garage. I mean, ugh. That's so gross and just scummy. And then 8 years later, like, he got sent back to prison because some smart people decided that we shouldn't have this cold-blooded killer out in public, where he can kill more old women who, their crime is that they're mean. Yeah. You compare that to this movie, where this movie clearly shows that if you're a killer, you're evil. And if you... I mean, the way that they did it, too, they tried to do it once, and it didn't work, and that's another thing. This movie was really honest with the female characters. It did not apologize for them and make the female characters look like victims, like movies usually do. I get really sick of that, when you have a movie like that Charlie Says movie where it's like, oh, the Manson girls, they were just victims of the Manson family. And they weren't evil. They were nice young girls. This movie shows it differently with these other girls, where it really shows how, like, they tried to kill him once and they couldn't do it. And so basically, they roped these other guys into doing it for them. And they just stood there and watched, and they got off on it. And then they had this little, they talked about it over the phone, too. That was another thing. Like, they're calling people up on the phone. Hey, do you want to go commit a murder? Come down here and let's hang out and we'll go kill someone. It's going to be really fun. And it's like, God, it never happened nowadays, that's for sure, because they passed that retarded Patriot Act. It just, I don't know, it's such a perfect film. Over the days of watching it, it did get harder to watch because, not because of really the content, but really because of the time that it takes. Because I got so much other stuff I gotta do, and the movie is 2 hours, so that's 2 hours of time that is being taken away from me. I didn't like that. Over time, the movie just, it made me feel more and more each time I watched it. Because another thing is that the main star who plays Marty, Brad Renfro, he's dead. And he died because I think he overdosed, and he was an alcoholic, and, he died young, and, that made me really sad, too. I started getting sad about that, and it's just a really sad movie. I mean, it is very enjoyable. It's got some really funny parts to it, but by the end of it, especially at the end, where they have this very, like, heavy music playing, and they show, these people in court, and they just look so awful, and they look, I don't know, they just don't look healthy, they don't look happy, they don't look, there's something wrong with them, and so it really makes you feel at the end, and to see all their sentences, and in particular, I did some research after, which made me even more pissed off. The fact that all the women got out by now. The only guy to get out was the fat guy, and he should not have been let out. Neither should have any of the women, except I guess for Heather, because Heather has some sort of an actual problem where she witnesses something bad going on and she curls up into a ball and cries, and she's the only one who couldn't have mentally did anything about what was going on, but everyone else should still be in prison. I mean, these women, if it's like what happened in the film, they're sinister people who deserve to be in prison. I mean, they conspired to commit murder. And let's talk about Bobby, because Booby Bobby, played by Nick Stahl, he is the star of the film. He gives the best performance of the entire film. Everyone gives like an Oscar-worthy performance. Or an award-worthy performance, I should say. But in particular, Nick Stahl, his performance is just so perfect. I didn't think it would be possible to play this character and to make him sympathetic in any way possible. But he had moments where his humanity shined through, probably because of Nick Stahl. Because he's a good person. He's not a rapist and a bully like the real Bobby was, apparently. But, his performance was just so well balanced of being this, like, bully, this just evil person, and also just being like a teenage kid. And that's another thing is, it was hard to think too the fact that were teenagers because when I was a teenager or a few years ago, I never would have done any of this shit, and it's just hard to imagine, other kids who I went to school with like doing the things that they did in this movie. And so overall, I mean, I would highly recommend this movie. I would give it probably surf and turf, to be honest. You got a big, fat, juicy steak, and then you got some nice crab as a tribute to the crabs eating the body. Which that was probably and that's another thing. There was a lot of really good humor in this movie, sprinkled in throughout the darkness. The funniest line of the movie was when the hitman is standing over the dead body, and he's like, nature sucks. His voice is just so like harsh. I mean, he's a teenager too, and he's like got this like mean look on his face all the time. It's just so funny and outrageous and sad all at once. And so yeah, I would give this movie a surf and turf meal. Which I'm not really a fan of surf and turf. I kind of like to have one or the other with some great sides. But this movie is just that good. I mean, there's nothing wrong in this whole movie. This movie is flawless. It is truly flawless. And now, in regards to what people have said about the nudity, the fact that, these are teenage characters, I really don't know what else they could have done to show the reality of what happened. These were adult actors. They were all 18 or older. And so that whole argument of nudity doesn't really matter at all to me. But I did feel a little uncomfortable at times. In particular, there was one scene near the end where it's in the bedroom, I guess, of the hitman. And the hitman lives with all these other teenagers, I guess. I mean, I guess it's a big family, or it's like a little gang of this family or something. It's not really made clear what the situation there was. I mean, he's there and there's like 5 other teenagers. And it's like, are they all related to him? Like, they never really say. Well, in the scene when they're in the hitman's bedroom, one of the teenagers is lying down sideways next to the hitman, and the camera does a slow pan of his entire body. He does have shorts on, thankfully, but it felt kind of uncomfortable to me because I don't know why they had to do that slow pan. That was very strange. And then they pan to the hitman, and they pan up, and they show his mean, ugly face, and he looks like he's just like, I'm glad he's in prison, that's for damn sure. That hitman was probably one of the most evil of the whole group. But other than that, I really felt for the characters. It's not like I'm trying to say that, Bobby was just a nice guy who, he was just amazing. He was evil too. And, he was most evil to me the first time I watched it. But after I just kept watching it, I just kept thinking of like, was it really worth it to ruin your life because of this guy? I mean, they never went to the police. They never went to their stupid parents. That's another thing. The parents in this movie are retarded. And Bobby's dad, he's a fine parent, but the way that he talked about Marty was just evil as well, because it's almost like he's a bully too. And it's like, I can see where Bobby got his bully tendencies. Because of his father, having these high standards, saying, Marty's a loser, he's this, he's that. But I felt for everybody. And I'm not saying that, like, Bobby was a nice person. But the fact that they killed him was just evil. And but yeah, overall, like, the movie is just perfect. I mean, anything else I could say? I guess the whole hitman situation was strange to me, because his father at one point is, like, instructing one of the kids to tell Lisa, played by the girl from Californication, to turn herself in. And it's weird because it's like, it's just, I don't know, it just doesn't make sense of, like, why the dad is. I mean, the dad character is just weird, and just, he doesn't make any sense. But it doesn't really take that much out of the movie. The movie is a perfect film. I would say this the second best movie of the 2000s decade, next to American Psycho. And it has some really good music too. I would say the best song was probably the song when the kids are at the hitman's house and they're talking about weapons, and they're just, it's daytime still, and they're just talking about weapons and shit. That was a really good song that they played over that scene. That was probably my favorite song. And my favorite scene is probably the scene where Bobby is driving to his death. He's in a car with these new people who have never met him before, and he just makes the worst impression possible. I mean, and you can see it in their faces too. They're like, God, this guy is fucking, he's a douchebag. Like, we can't wait to kill him. We're glad we're gonna go kill this guy, because he's like, he doesn't remember their name. He's calling them whores. And obviously, I know a lot of this stuff is just recreated. Maybe this stuff never happened, but just, it was a perfect scene because, he had no idea what was going to happen, and these characters did, and it just made things worse because they just got the look of evil in their eye, and they all kind of, like, they got into it. They weren't really invested until that point where they met him, and they figured out how much of an asshole he was. But other than that, I don't really have anything more to say. I just really, I love the movie, and I thought it would be a really fun experience to watch it 7 days in a row. It was not very fun. It was very grating. It was very exhausting. I'm probably going to own the movie at some point. I have to say too, I really loved the performances from everybody, especially Nick Stahl, number one. Number two, probably Brad Renfro. Number three, the girl from Californication. They were just perfect, and I'd love to see them in more stuff. So yeah. Oh wait, no, I can't. You can't see. Well, I gotta check out some of other Brad Renfro's films, because I haven't seen Apt Pupil and some of the other popular films he's been in. I have seen The Client. So yeah, that's it. Please like this video if you liked it. Comment and subscribe. That's it. Goodbye, everybody. See you soon.